Welcome to the Lancaster Patriot podcast. My name is Chris Hume, the managing editor of the Lancaster Patriot. I'm joined today once again by my co-host, Joel Saint, pastor of Independence Reformed Bible Church. Joel, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here as always.
Podcast today is brought to you by Heritage Floors. Heritage Floors can help you create the home of your dreams with shades, carpet, area rugs, specialty flooring, and more. No matter what you're trying to do in your home, they can listen, figure out what you need, and help you with your project. They can install it for you if you're a do-it-yourselfer. They can give you all the products at the best prices. So visit the showroom of Heritage Floors on 60 North Ronks Road in Ronks, or go to heritagefloorspa.com. Your perfect home starts with Heritage Floors. Joel, today we're going to have a brief episode on the fact that the home rule study was approved in Lancaster City. All right, so we talked a little bit about this concept last year when we talked about the budget for Lancaster City, and the mayor was saying that, you know, we just got to raise these property taxes because we just don't have enough money for all of these services. So we briefly touched on this idea of home rule at the time, but we didn't get into it. So I want to get into it now, and I want to briefly just explain what it is, share some comments from the mayor, and then just comment on this for a couple moments. So this was put on the primary ballot, a referendum question: should Lancaster City commission a study for home rule? So what is home rule? Home rule allows local governments far greater freedom, especially the ability to force their citizens to pay more taxes. That's basically what it comes down to. It gives the local government more freedom to force taxation on the citizens. According to the state's Department of Community and Economic Development, quote, local governments without home rule can only act where specifically authorized by state law. Home rule municipalities can act anywhere except where they are specifically limited by state law. So basically, if you don't have home rule, which Lancaster City does not at the moment, there's only certain things they can do as far as forced taxation. If they get home rule, then they have much greater freedom. The state legislature can't limit them in many ways as far as what they can tax their people. So since 1972, Joel, home rule charters were introduced. Over 20 Pennsylvania cities have adopted home rule, and I think there's been some other municipalities as well. So that change, again, transfers the authority to make laws from the state government to the local government. Now, I want to share a quote here from the mayor. If you're watching, you'll see this up on the screen. But this is how the mayor pitched it to the residents. So this was, this was an op-ed in L&P. The mayor's writing to the city residents, telling them, hey, you need to vote for this study. We need to start studying this because she obviously wants it. So this is what the mayor said, quote, why study home rule? The city budget increased an average of 2.5% each year over the last 8 years. Property tax revenue, our main revenue source, cannot keep up, on average increasing less than 1% yearly. So either property tax rates must go up or the city must make cuts to services to balance the budget. Okay, so that's her pitch. Listen, we need home rule because property taxes, we can't increase them fast enough. So she mentions this in her piece that, hey, we need to, if we can't raise these taxes, we got to cut these services to the budget. But in her piece, there's no talk at all of actually, hey, are there any services we could cut? Which is the first thing I see. So they always bring that up, oh, we're going to have to cut services, and they never actually address that issue. It's more of like an apocalyptic warning, like, we need more money from you. So, Joel, we're going to get into this just briefly. I mean, we talked about this with the budget and this city providing all these services. I mean, what do you take from this mayor's, her plea? And by the way, I mean, obviously we're past the primary election. It did pass, so we will talk a little bit about that. But the vote passed, so home rule will be studied. It's not going to happen yet. That would be another vote. But the mayor got what she wanted here, and basically she's saying, we need to take more money from you, so vote for this.
Yeah, of course, unsurprising. I would like it at some point to hear how much is going to be enough. It's funny. We want to tax the rich, right? And we say things like, well, he has enough, right? He or she. They're wealthy enough. They don't need any more. We can tax them more. Funny how that never gets asked when it comes to municipal or any kind of government. It's never asked, well, how much is enough for you guys? Well, I know how much is enough. More. That appears to be the answer.
Yeah. Now, so this vote passed 3,593 in favor, 1,117 against. Okay, so now they will be commissioning the study, and there's going to be a group to study this and then put forth another proposal if they think, hey, we should do home rule, and then the citizens would have to vote again. So it hasn't happened yet, but they're looking to do this. It would happen probably, I think, 2025 or 26. I don't remember the exact year, but a couple of years down the road if they approve this. Now, I want to talk about this. Okay, what exactly could this do? Okay, what could this mean? So I have another quote here from the mayor, and I want us to get into this. The mayor said, "I know many have felt the impact of property tax increases. Continuing to raise the property tax rate is unsustainable, especially for older residents living on a fixed income. Through home rule, the city could raise revenue." I always love how they make it. It's revenue. We're raising revenue. Yeah. Instead of forcing you to pay more taxes would be the accurate way. Raise revenue by modifying other existing tax rates rather than over-relying on one source, property taxes. Other taxes include earned income taxes, local services taxes, and real estate transfer taxes, end quote. So, I mean, again, what she's basically saying here is we need to squeeze more money out of you. The property, and it's pitched in this way of, well, you know, the property, I mean, she's the one that recommended last year that the property tax rate increased by 8%. So she's not afraid to raise the tax rates. And basically all she's saying here is, give me more power to tax you. Right. I mean, shouldn't that be concerning to the people? Yeah,
there seems to be no end. I mean, what I'm really hearing is look, you know, the hypodermic needle that we have in your left arm sucking out your blood through property taxes is getting too big. And in order for us to get the money I want, we're not going to make that any bigger. Instead, we're going to poke some new ones into you. That's what I'm hearing. Like, okay, but I'm going to lose the blood anyway, right? I'm going to pay the taxes, right. But I'm supposed to feel better because it's coming from a different source. It's coming from my right arm instead of my left arm. Oh, I feel so much better. Yeah. Now, and there's been other municipalities, cities that have done this, and they said, "Oh, this was great. This saved our city or whatever because now we have more money instead of borrowing from the state." But again, none of these, in everything I've read, it's never even addressed. Well, maybe we should cut our services. Not even touched. I mean, that topic is brought up that we have to cut our services. We have no other option. But it's never, well, maybe that's a good thing. Yeah. Never even considered that, are there things that the city government or the county government, whatever, is doing that they should not be doing? Well, I'm intrigued with it saved our city. I'm interested in what, I'm looking around at what's happening in our cities. I'd like to see what city was saved through doing this. I mean, it's such a cool name, home rule. Well, let's get home rule. Well, what did we have before? Rule from Mars? These names that they mess with us, who could possibly be against home rule, right? But, Chris, I'd like to know who's ruling us now, or the city of Lancaster now, if they don't have quote-unquote home rule. Don't we have a mayor? Don't we have a city council? Well, it's not good enough. Well, why is that not good enough? Well, it's not good enough not because we don't have representation. We don't have that. Right. But it's not good enough because there have been things put in place to make it difficult to get more money out of us. That's the bottom line. I mean, that is the bottom line. That's what it comes down to. And the mindset, the socialistic statist mindset is, well, yeah, the city government, their job is to provide all these services. And if they cannot do all these things that we have assumed they should do, then they're failing. And so I'm sure there are, I think the one city was Pittston. I mean, there's cases where they were, they're going to be in debt. And so this did help them get out of that. Obviously, because they can take more money from people. Yeah. But it's not solving any problem. Is that going to stop Pittston from getting in debt ever again, though? Right. No. Pittston will most likely have some new services that will help get more votes for the people in power, right? Right. And then what are you going to do when we're back in trouble again? I mean, Pittston did not get in trouble because, or any of these cities, because they didn't have home rule. Right. They got in trouble because they spent money they didn't have. Right. And I forget which city exactly, so that may be one that's toying with it, but there's definitely an example, and I should have printed out here, of a city that was used as a case study here to say, hey, this is what can happen in Lancaster. And to your point, exactly, how did you get into that problem? Because you were living beyond your means, as it were, as a civil government, and you were already forcing your citizens to pay, so how can you expect that to be blessed? So we're just constantly, we're going to have to pay the piper eventually, right? And we're seeing that to a degree, and here we're coming in and try to put a Band-Aid on it and say, hey, we're going to solve this by taxing you more. Yeah. Yeah, and if I could just say this, I know we've talked about this before, but just going back and back and back and taking a step back, once the civil magistrate has the power to tax involuntarily,
Right.
where's the limit?
Right.
And we said before, the Bible, the scriptures, do not give anywhere the civil authorities the power to tax at the point of a gun.
Right.
They don't give you the authority to punish for non-payment of taxes. But once the civil authority has that, sky's the limit, apparently.
Yeah, and that's really the gateway drug, as it were, into statism. Our CEO, Dave Stoltzfus, always talks about forced taxation. That's the one point you're going to get everybody, you could talk about anything else. Once you touch that,
Yeah.
then, the tyrants and the statists say, they get up in arms. Well, you can't touch forced taxation.
Yeah.
That's our lifeblood.
Yeah.
And, if we can't force you to pay us for all these things that we're going to make you need, then we got a problem.
Yeah.
So, real quick, just one more thing on this with the mayor here. She said, this is the final quote from her. I might have one more actually, but she says, in contrast to stagnant property tax revenues, earned income tax revenues grow over time as incomes grow. However, our income tax rate has remained largely unchanged since 1965 at 0.6%. Because of this, a modest increase in the earned income tax, I like how she says modest.
Modest.
It's going to be a modest increase in the income tax rate could bring stability to the city's finances for years to come. Modest increase maybe could bring it, right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
She goes on, reducing the property tax burden. Oh, so kind of her. Earned income taxes are also more equitable. The more you make, the more you pay, and vice versa.
How's that equitable? Hey, let me ask you something, Chris. Okay, we're talking about services, right? Do the people that pay more taxes get more services?
No, it's actually the other way around.
Right. So where's the equity here?
Right. Yeah, this is a progressive tax, right? And biblically, you talked about how there's no punishment, there's no forced taxation. There is to be a voluntary tax, and it was a flat tax.
Yes.
It was based per head. It was not a progressive tax.
Yeah, if anything, it was a regressive tax because you're paying a flat tax, like you owe so much, and then you're done paying. Well,
Right.
then the more you make, the less you pay in comparison.
Right.
And Chris, it's such a, biblical taxation is such a wonderful thing because it encourages productivity. Progressive income tax discourages productivity. You mean the more I make, the more I have to pay? At some point, it's not worth it anymore, and we lose productivity.
Right. Yeah. And so this just shows us we're going in the obviously the opposite direction here
Yes.
of biblical society. If you were looking at this biblically, we would say, okay, let's cut all the services that the city government should not be doing, which is going to be probably 99% of them, because they should be punishing evil, right? And so not providing all these services. And then let's say, how can we get rid of the property tax? Because again, that's forced taxation on your property.
Yeah.
That's not biblical. So, but what she's saying is we're going to keep all the status services, we're going to keep the property tax, and we're going to tax you more.
Yeah.
How can we not see where this is going? So in reading some of these articles, and there was an article in LNP and they talked about it, and they highlighted one of these other cities. And one of the concerns was, well, with this home rule, theoretically, there's an unlimited tax rate, which I know we talked to people before who say, well, yeah, even from, pastors who say, well, if the civil government wants to tax 100% of your income, they can do it. Well, here's a way they could theoretically. Yeah. It's unlimited in a sense, the tax rate. Now, this is a reality that the mayor, Deneen Sarace, I think I said her name wrong last time, I'm probably still saying it wrong, but the Lancaster City mayor alluded to this reality in her column, but she then brushed it off. This is what she said. She said, while a lot can change through home rule, I am suggesting slight changes to keep our city running effectively and sustainably.
Oh, man.
So, she's alluding to the fact, hey, you know what? Yeah, this could change. Like, we could tax you 95% of your income theoretically, but I'm not suggesting that.
But in the meantime, you can trust me.
Yeah. So, this is what's happening in Lancaster City. If you're a resident of Lancaster City, be aware of this. This will come up. I would imagine the commission's going to say this is a great idea. Who's going to be appointing this commission? I would imagine the mayor has a hand in that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure these people are going to say, well, of course we need to do home rule. And so this is going to be another question on the ballot eventually here. And if the Lancaster City voters say yes, you've basically, you've given the city government far more power to force you to pay them. So,
Yep. Yeah.
Any final words on this, Joel?
Yeah, Book of Amos talks about grain taxes, and God was against grain taxes.
Right.
Here's what I want to say about that. The Bible speaks to these issues, speaks to these topics. You never see forced taxation in the scriptures unless it's either by an apostate king of Israel or by a pagan king. You never see where God says, speak unto the children of Israel, and the Lord said to Moses, speak unto the children of Israel that they pay so much, and if they don't, this is what happens. Never happens. And in fact, we don't have time to get into this necessarily, but that apparently was the problem with numbering the people. David was not the number of the people. They were not the number of the people. And the best we can tell is if they never knew how many people they actually had, they would have a hard time taxing them directly. And God is not ambivalent. His word is not ambivalent, like, hey, some people want to do this, some people want to do that. No, he's told us how to love our neighbor through the civil sphere. And one way of loving our neighbor is not to force taxes out of them.
Amen. Amen. So last year, the budget proposed $30 million in property taxes. Not enough. We need more. I mean, she already was trying to raise that. Now we need to tax your income. We need to tax your real estate transfer, right?
Yeah.
We need to tax anything we can get our hands on.
Yeah.
Let us serve you by taxing you. So Lancaster City residents, there it is, home rule study. The study is approved. The vote will probably be, I forget how long it takes, in a year or so. So be aware of that. For more information about Joel Saint, go to irbc.church. For more on the Lancaster Patriot, to listen to all our podcasts, read our news stories, our editorials, go to thelancasterpatriot.com. Until next time, so long, and God bless.